Welcome to the session. Devraj Sen, who is our software development manager, will be providing a session on reporting. Devraj has been with us since 2003. Devraj, it's up to you.
It's a pretty big crowd here. My name is Devraj Sen. I'm the software development manager at Trihedral. A little bit about myself with regards to reporting. I kind of have a vested interest in reports. I'm what they actually call a Trihedral boy. And I started at Trihedral as a co-op student. And one of the first things I did as a co-op student was work on the reporting layer, and this was way back in 2000. When I graduated, I started working full-time for Trihedral as a software developer, and I've been developing VTScada since then, and now I'm managing the R&D department. So a lot of the stuff here, especially some of the older parts, is definitely I have been involved with it in the past. So what I would like to cover today is basically a very broad overview of all the reporting options. Maybe not that broad. I will get into a fair bit of details and demo things. But I want people to have an idea of what are all your options. People get set on getting data only one particular way, but the need and the demands vary from each individual project or your time that's available to you. So basically, reporting in VTScada can be broken up into two broad categories. One is options which are native to VTScada. That means you don't need any other software other than VTScada to get this reporting data, but you do need to install VTScada. That would include our built-in historical data viewer, our built-in reports page and reports tags, and also if you're familiar with VTScada script, you can actually script your own reports. The other category is what I like to call as third-party tools, where how can you get the data recorded by VTScada outside? How can you access it without having to install VTScada? And the two main ways you do that is basically you could log all the data we have. A historian can be configured to log to a SQL database. It could be a SQL server. It could be Oracle. That's one way. And then you can use any tool you want to manipulate the data, run your queries. The other neat way we provide is you can use the ODBC driver that we provide, and you install it on a client machine, and that's all you've got to install, the ODBC driver, and you can pull data from a VTScada server. In this case, a VTScada machine is acting as an ODBC server, and you're just sitting as a client pulling data. So without further ado, I'll get into more details on each of these. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the historical data viewer. So as an example, this is what I'm talking about when we talk about the historical data viewer. Those of you who have used the product are familiar with the HDV screen. The HDV was actually one of the first projects I worked on. Me and Glenn spent many a long night doing and designing this. It's about 15 years back now. And it has evolved over time. But in essence, whatever you see on your screen as a trend, there is a tab down here called Grid, and you can switch to it, and you can get the exact same data. You can choose your time span. You can choose whether you want to watch at what averages you want. You want to see minimums, maximums, or you just want to see raw data. There is a way to set up groups in the HDV. So for example, I have a group already built here, which has a couple of queries in it. And you can load a group. For example, let's just go through that actually. I'll just put two tab analogs together and say that's group one. Plot that and go into the grid, and you can see all the data for the raw data for this. I can see average data if I want it. Now, this is averages for every hour. How do you get this data out of your system? So we have an export utility in the HDV, which you can use to export the data to either an Excel spreadsheet, a CSV file, or an ODBC compliant data source. Okay? So I'm going to do an Excel spreadsheet here. It's the file I just exported. So the data you have on the grid there is available to you. Once you have it out in Excel, you can choose to do whatever you want with it. It can be, as I said, a CSV file. It could also be exported to an ODBC data source. So that's one of the first, most basic way you can get some reporting out of VTScada. This grid view is powerful enough that you can choose, as I said, minimums and maximums. You can get the raw data. You can have multiple tags as columns here. But it gives you at least some basic functionality to get the data and get some reporting done. So the next thing we're going to talk about is going to be the reports page in VTScada. So this is the main reporting interface in VTScada. It's a page where you've got a few components. We have a bunch of pre-canned reports, which according to the industries we work in, has proved to be most common requirements. So you have an analog summary report, snapshot reports, rainfall reports, driver error communication reports, pump reports. So the first drop list allows you to choose a report. In this case, let's say we are going to choose an analog report. The next control here is basically lists all tags in the system. Because this report works only on analogs, it's already filtered it to analogs, only the analog tags available. But we could choose to see all tags in the system if we wanted to, like all tags which are being logged. We could choose to see all numeric tags. From here, just like in the HDV, you have the ability to create a group. So if I switch back to analogs and I want both these tags, I'll take them over here and I can do a save group. I can give it a name like group 1 and hit OK. And just to show you that it works, if I hit load group, it just automatically loads the tags in the system. The third control here, it's controlling your reporting period. For example, in this case, I'm going to do a previous calendar day report. And the number of previous periods, that's a little more involved. But basically, if I put in the number 5 here, it's the number of iterations. So if I do previous calendar day, it's going to give you 5 days worth of 5 previous days, starting back from now. We'll just stick to 1 for now. And we're going to do a basic, very basic screen display. I'm going to choose Excel to display the report. We do interface with Excel. If you have Excel installed on your machine, the screen display will come up in Excel. And we'll run that report. So this is what it's showing us for the analog statistics, analog status tags. These are the analog summary reports are coming up with these values. Another report we can run is probably, let's say, the hourly snapshot report, which will show what VTScada believes to be the value of these tags for every hour for the previous calendar day. So again, you can get it out into the system. You can use Excel. You can choose to do a basic screen report, which is, check this, and that's basic screen display. You can, the output options are you can get a CSV file, you can send it directly to a default printer, you can send it to an ODBC data source again, you can send it to Access. One of the things which is worthwhile showing here is if you choose, let's say, something like a text file or a formatted Excel file, if you have your email server set in the application, you will have the option to email the reports when they're generated. So automatically, when it displays it on the screen, it will also send out an email to whichever address you want. So besides the fact that you have this report page, this is what I would say is like ad hoc reports and like on demand. You want to go in one morning and you want to run a report for something, you would go to this page and choose one of these reports and run it. But that often doesn't really work out. People need daily reports or monthly reports, so you need to do it on a schedule. You don't want to have to do this manually every time. So what we have is actually a report tag. So a report tag is almost like an instance of this page, if you can think of it. It has the same options, all the same controls which you see on this page, but laid out in a tag config folder format. And you can specify a group to be used. You have the period. Additionally, you now have an option to trigger it. And you can trigger it hourly, daily, weekly, monthly. You can also use an external trigger. You can trigger it by some particular event. When a tag value goes on, probably you want to trigger it. One of the most important things here on the report tag is the workstation field, because the workstation field tends to determine on which machine the report is going to get run. So if you have a bunch of networked VTScada machines, you don't want the reports necessarily running on every machine. You want to dedicate a machine, and that's where the workstation field becomes very useful. It's got the same destination options. Basically, you can write out to a directory. It will automatically do that. And the report tag does get used a lot by people. Just to give you an idea, if I were to take one of the report tags and I was to draw it, I get a bunch of options. I can actually draw each of these individual controls we have on that page as a drawing method for the report tag. In this case, I'm choosing a very basic option, which is just a run report button. And I have this report tag already configured. And if I run this report, it just generated a sheet for me. I have it set it up to Excel. Okay. The other thing I would like to mention here is about custom reports. So custom reports require the VTScada scripting knowledge. So it can be used to create any report. You have access to VTScada's library of math and statistics functions. It integrates with VTScada reporting page and allows operator selection of tags, time periods, and output formats and destinations. It can be used with the report tag for scheduled reports. It will require knowledge of VTScada scripting, and the options for formatting are somewhat limited. But at the same time, I will talk more about this in detail later. There's a lot you can do there. But I often get asked the question for some projects or some jobs, it's necessary to know that how much customization can you do? And literally, you can write your own report, which is going to plug in to the drop list here. And it's going to be available as a report. You can choose your columns. You can choose what rows of data you want. There's an interface to it. I'm going to show you one of the simpler reports we have, which is like a driver summary report. It looks like a lot of code, right, looking at it, but it isn't. It's mostly definitions. It's setting up arrays. There is only really two things happening here, two key things. You get the data. There is an interface to get the data from VTScada, and you basically spit out the data. There are two, so you get the data and you spit out the data. And when you spit out the data, you can write out a title and you can write out a line of data. So it's really actually not that difficult in terms of scripting or programming. If you're comfortable with VTScada scripting, you're just going to call the data and you're going to format your arrays and you're going to send it out. And you can choose to do it in whichever fashion you want. It can be a very simple report to something more complicated where you do all kinds of formatting, or you have breaks and lines and you have different segments. But it is an option for you to consider, just to be aware, before you look at other options. So if I were to review the options which we give you with just VTScada and no other software involved, not even Excel, let's say, the advantages you have is that they're easy to configure and they can be configured quickly. They're cost efficient, requiring little development time. You don't need any additional software. You have automated schedules. You cannot do user customized reports. You cannot take an existing report and customize it further. Your formatting options are somewhat limited. No additional calculations are possible on the data if you're going with all the options I presented, besides Excel. I'll come to that again later. So it's a tool to be used when there is low development time or low cost is required, and basic report customization and formatting is acceptable for you. So a special word on Excel. Excel is fairly powerful when interfaced with VTScada. It's not a very expensive solution. It's a standalone license for Excel is probably retails under $200. The options in Excel range from just a CSV output, just a screen display in Excel, to writing a macro in an Excel template where you can use VB script and you can calculate, summarize, and publish the data beautifully, okay? So this is just VTScada and Excel, nothing else involved. A lot of people get turned off by writing VB script and trying to find out stuff. I often like to point out to people that Excel does have actually a macro recorder in it. So if you were to actually literally spit out data on an Excel spreadsheet and you said, okay, now I have my data. I want to format it. I want to move this block here. I want to draw a chart. You can actually start this macro recorder and you can start doing things and it will log all the visual basic script in the background for you. So where I'm going with this is one of the lesser known options probably used is there is a screen display in Excel. When you use it, you actually have a template field. And we provide some templates out of the box in VTScada. If you look in your installation folder under examples, there's a bunch of XLTs. So we're going to use example 2 here, and we'll run the analog summary report. And basically what this Excel template has is a macro in it called complete. The macro must be called complete. And it does some additional formatting and rearranging of the data. So I have a very simple macro here. I'm going to run this one. So you can see there is 3 rows hidden here. There is more lines of total, average, standard deviation, variation. This is using the template. And this is what an analog summary report actually looks like. It only had 2 lines of data. So this template has this additional total, average, standard deviation, variance, which it's doing. It's colorizing the columns. So there's a lot you can do in Excel using this method. You can even do it silently in the background. You don't even have to show it on the screen. You can do it on an automated schedule connected to a report tag. You can send it to a printer even from your macro. So if people go and invest a lot of money into reporting solutions, and sometimes it's worth considering that if you can write a simple macro or a simple piece of script, and you might have some development time invested there, but it might turn out to be a lot more cost efficient than going for another bigger reporting package. Again, my intent here is just to give you the entire arsenal, and then you can decide which works best for you for which job. The pros of using Excel is definitely the reports have a better appearance and manual processing can be done, perform further data analysis. It's a standard software package. Most people are used to Excel. The cons are, yes, it requires Excel, and it requires some knowledge of Excel. This is one of the more advanced examples of this is published in Excel. This is done in-house. We've done it for one of our customers. It's basically taking data. You can even think that the data is dumped out into one sheet or raw data, and then it just rejigs everything, does this, and replaces that sheet with this. It's another example of using Excel. So you can get reports out of this with just VTScada and Excel. Okay, so now we'll move into the second broad category I was talking about. These were all the options we talked about with VTScada, just using VTScada, and possibly an installation of Excel. How can you access all the data we are recording in VTScada, all this historical data from outside VTScada? So one of the first things you can do, if it is a requirement, an IT requirement, or whatever requirement of the job, you can log our historian data into a ODBC database. So if any of you are familiar with the historian tag, I'm going to show you the properties of one of this historian tag I have here. In the data store section, there's usually a storage type and a storage location. Usually these are left blank. But by default, we use our proprietary native historian database built within VTScada. But you can set the storage type to ODBC, and then the storage location could be an ODBC connection string. And there's all kinds of configurations possible with this. You can have a single historian, which on one machine is logging to the native VTScada historian, and on another machine is logging to a ODBC database. So backup server is logging to a SQL database. Primary server is logging to VTScada database. Or you could have different historians. You have a bunch of tags which you log only for the native historian, and you create a second instance of a historian and you log a bunch of tags only for a SQL database. Use case may be like there's two different parts of a plant. One plant is more interested in making the data available in SQL and has the requirements that somebody outside the network needs to be able to access it. Once the data is available in an ODBC database, you can use whichever tool the IT department wants to process that data, whether it's the best database we have found as a third-party database to use has been, best performing one has been Microsoft SQL Server, actually. We do talk to Oracle also, but Oracle has notoriously given us a little bit more pain in terms of performance. But SQL Server seems to be our best bet thus far. The other option in ODBC is we provide, when we send you installers for VTScada, there's also an installer called VTS ODBC driver installer.exe. That installs a DLL on the client machine. So you don't have to have VTScada on your machine, but your VTScada server has to be configured to be an ODBC server. So what does this require? This requires your license must be ODBC server capable. It requires at least a user who can access the system over the VIC. It works the same setup as you would do for an internet client connection. You would set up a realm, but you would set up a realm for ODBC, and you can have incoming connections over that realm as long as they have internet client privileges. This particular topic, ODBC driver, we will talk more in detail about it in a workshop tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock if any of you are interested. I'll be doing a hands-on workshop where I will show you how to set it up, how to set up a realm, users, connect to an ODBC data source, get some data out, what kind of queries you can run. And that should be, that's pretty neat actually. So what do you do when you have the data available in an ODBC driver? You can connect to Microsoft Excel. You can use Excel Reporter by Cytec, or Dream Reports, or Crystal Reports. So you've got multiple packages you can use to connect via the ODBC driver, again, depending on how fancy you want to get. So for the ODBC driver setup, I covered a bit of this already. On the VTScada server, you need, so if you go in the information dialog on the VAM, the license information shows what is enabled. So what you really need is ODBC server. It should be marked enabled. You need to set up a realm. I have a realm set up already called sample, which is connected to this application. I have a user set up who has internet client privileges. There is a setting you have to set in the application to specify the ODBC realm. And on the client machine, this is only on the server side, but on the client machine, all you're doing is taking an exe and installing it. So that's all that is there in the setup for this. So I want to show you quickly, since I have Excel here. Go into data, and we're going to just run a Microsoft query here. And I'm going to connect to my application. So one of the things of the configuration is that I have a DSN created on my machine, which is connecting to my application. So you would have that on the server and on the client machine. And once you connect, you can see all the tables which we serve up. And one of the things people don't realize, a little known fact about the ODBC driver is, you're not just getting VTScada process data which is being logged, you now have access to alarm data, which is not available in our basic reporting package here. So you can get the entire alarm history, you can get active alarms. There's a lot of pre-canned tables here which we provide. It's like history 1D, history 1H. What these means is that's a one-day average, daily averages. Then there's an hourly averages table, monthly averages, weekly averages. You can also get there's this new feature now that you can access tag parameter data from ODBC driver. So you can get tag configuration parameters. What is the scaling value of this analog status? What is the name? You can list all tags with a certain area. And we keep developing this. We support a subset of the SQL commands, but one of the new ones we recently added was the like command, so you can do pattern matching and run more queries. So for example, I'll show you the history table here. This has all the data, and we'll take just timestamp from here, and we'll take AS2 probably, and just going to go through this here. So there you go. This is the Microsoft Query Editor. But for lack of a better tool, if you had any ODBC tool, you would execute a query, and this is what you would get back. Your query looks literally like this. Excel has a tendency to add some redundant table names, but in the most basic format, this is all you need for the query. And that's what I have. A little bit more advanced stuff I will show you is in terms of queries is so here I'm looking for not from the history table, but from the average table. I'm looking for two tags. I'm looking for hourly averages where the timestamp is somewhere midday between the 14th and the 15th. So I have where timestamp is cutoff with cutoff date specified. And so now I have two columns. It's giving me the average values of the data. Another query you can worthwhile looking at is, let's say, actually one of the tables to look at is, since that's a fairly newer option, wanted to show you the alarm history database. There you go. You've got the entire alarm history dumped out in just via query. Again, here I'm selecting the timestamp name and operator from the alarm history table where the timestamp is between a particular date. And that's the result of my query. The other thing, which I was talking about, was one of the features we've just added in 11.3. This was actually a customer request who was dealing with alarm history, and he wanted the like operator in SQL to do some pattern matching. So here, you can see there's a deleted user entry here. So I'm looking for where the operator is like DEV. So I want only the operator as Devraj. I don't want deleted user. And that basically gets you, so it's a very basic example of a pattern matching feature. So that's actually available in 11.3.22. Okay. So what are the advantages of ODBC driver? I would say that you're able to query VTScada process data and alarm history in ways that are not available using the built-in reports. Third-party tools often have extensive options for creating well-formatted reports. They might be, they're extensive. They could also be expensive packages, though. But you don't require a VTScada license on the workstations where you're running the reports. So if there's a manager or someone who's looking at it, they don't need to install VTScada on their machine. They could be on offsite. They just have ODBC driver installed. And as long as they can connect to the server over the internet, if they have internet client privileges over a secure connection, they should be able to run reports. The challenges are mainly, again, as I kind of alluded to, an expensive third-party tool you might require, or it can be something as simple as Excel. You will need to have somebody who knows, is familiar with SQL. You will need knowledge of the third-party program. And VTScada is not, we don't support the entire SQL commands. We only support a subset, which is, we've chosen it carefully that which most our customers will benefit from is mainly aggregation and calculation options. So sometimes when you can run a really powerful query in SQL, you might not be able to run it in VTScada in just one statement. You might need a couple of statements in SQL to do that. So this is an example of a report done via the product Excel Reporter. So it's basically formatted using Excel Reporter. You can also literally do this if you wrote a VB script. You could have a template which has this. You can dump data on another sheet, and you can just fill in the cells. This is Dream Report, another software package, and this allows a lot more user customization of reports, building ad hoc reports. Crystal Reports, as you know, by SAP is touted to be the best, but they are expensive and require extensive preparation to use. One final thing I wanted to actually throw this idea to you guys is like another thing when people are talking about reports is that a report is a display of collected data. It is optionally grouped or summarized and then displayed on pages. So think of VTScada pages. Built in, this page there's nothing custom here. It's using a tag list widget, which is drawing a bunch of individual analog and digital tag widgets. And it's using a history statistics tag. A history statistics tag gives you the ability to get hourly, daily data. So it's kind of a live screen. It's kind of like a dashboard where there's live values being updated. And You use calculation history statistics tags and a tag list widget, and now you have this screen where large amounts of information have been grouped in a meaningful way, and you can print this out, print this page out. This could serve as your report. You literally have to do nothing else. You don't even need Excel. So this is one other option I just wanted to mention to people. So for example, one example I wanted to show you was an example of using this report was built using custom scripting. Somebody wrote a custom report, which was available in the drop list on the report page. And this is done using totally VTScada scripting and built-in widgets. And they drew a bunch of analogs and tag list widgets, drew a mini HDB at the bottom. That is a standard HDB. It's just got a lot of bunch stuff disabled and enabled. And you can do something like this, and you can print out this page. Finally, moving forward, I'd like to mention what we are planning on doing with reports in general. So one of the feedback I often get is that reports can be challenging. We don't do reports as well as we do everything else. Yes and no. Or the interface and reporting is probably fairly dated, but there is a lot of capability, and that's what I've tried to present to you, that there is a lot of options, starting from writing custom VB scripts to custom VTScada code to using an ODBC driver or buying an expensive third-party package. But our goal is always to try and make it as easy as possible for you. So given that feedback, what we've been trying to work on is adding a particular option in Excel that we can add a VTScada tool. So Excel ribbon is going to have a button from where you can set up a connection to a VTScada server. You can pull current values, historical values, and you can even browse the tag browser. So to a large extent, the vision is almost that we would like to replace the VTScada reports page with as much functionality we can give. If I could tell you that install Excel and just use this tool and use it to query it, and it dumps it right in your spreadsheet, and you have all kinds of configuration options, you'd probably find that easier. You'd find it easier for somebody who deals with Excel. So this is some very preliminary mock-ups of what the tool is going to look like in Excel. This is actually currently in the works. We plan to release it in the next major version of VTScada in version 12. And we've been working on it, and it's actually going pretty well. It's a funny anecdote is how technologies change. Is when we first started looking at it, one of the problems we ran into is that which versions of Excel do we want to support? If we want to support from 2003, we have to choose their old libraries. If we want to support only the latest Excel, we can support the new library. So we finally, while we were deciding that, 6 months went by, and Microsoft now has a support for both those versions. So sometimes waiting a little bit while designing a software often helps out. So this is going to be the tag browser in Excel. So finally, to recap, if you wanted to choose your reporting solution will be influenced by the trade-off between several factors. Data is within VTScada completely, or it's a mixture of data from several sources that you have to collect. The amount of processing it's required, the amount of formatting that's required, the skills and knowledge you have at your disposal. Any given solution might require you to know VTScada scripting, VBA, SQL, other third-party programs, the expense you're willing to undertake, the time at your disposal again. I would say, to me, VTScada Reports has a lot of capability and potential. It's almost like it's like Robert Downey Jr. before he landed the role of Iron Man. There's a lot you can do with it. So I would love to hear from all of you and solve any problems you might be having. Thank you so much.